It's time to play with the gearbox. We're going to clean it up a little bit before we do anything else to it because it is covered in crud. So this is going to be pulled off. I'm just going to do it with a screwdriver and I'm going to make a big mess and then I'm going to vacuum it all up so I don't spill too much on the floor for it not to get stuck all over my shoes. We've got the wiring harness pushed back through the firewall. We've got a couple of brake lines just put back into place where they need to go. I haven't actually hooked them up in there yet, but we'll get around to it. This is just where the harness is going to sit until the engine's in, because then I can start working out where all the ends go, and also I can give it a good tidy up, get rid of any wires that aren't needed, get rid of this old crappy tape, and put some good wire harness tape over the top of it. So that's enough of that for now. Let's start cleaning the gearbox up. Fingers crossed it actually still works really well, although I did drive it just around the driveway to reverse into the shed. Who knows what it will be like on its first drive, so I'm not going to go overboard with it because it still might end up in the trash. So we'll give it a good clean up, get it back on the engine, get it back in the car. I'll tell you what, this is going to take a long time. So I just did up the bolts here to make sure no water is going to get in there, and I'm going to attempt to power wash it. I'll also tape up this little bit here. I don't want to blast water through the gearbox speed sensor thing. This is really thick stuff, so it's just going to take a long time with a screwdriver. But if I can get the power washer to blast this off real close, then that'd be awesome. Some of it's kind of just light clay and dirt buildup. I'd say this has been paddock bashed over its life, hence all this crud and dirt. Anyway, let's attempt the power washer because it's going to be a lot quicker than doing it this way. Yeah, it's kind of working. It's also making my camera very wet, so I might move this back just a bit. Well, there you go. It's a little bit cleaner, but I am saturated and covered in grime. I'm going to take it back inside, put it on the bench, and then I'm going to hit it with a scouring cloth and degreaser. Red scouring pad, degreaser. Going to give it a scrub. Might also use one of these, just in case. That's enough for that side. I know it's not perfect, but I just want it to be a little bit cleaner so I don't get junk all over my hands when I'm putting it back in and through the car. Sure is better than this side, so After I'm finished this, I will take it back outside and give it another spray down just to get all this kind of junk out of these inside bits. I'm going to continue doing this. See you in a sec. And here we have a relatively clean gearbox. Definitely not perfectly clean, but it's more than enough for me putting it back on the car. I'm not going to get grimy fingers and all that junk over my hands when I'm putting it all back together. So that's nice and neat. Whew. Well, scrubbing, about an hour to get all that done. So we are now ready to make this back up to the engine. So let's get prepared to do that. Alright, so getting ready to put the gearbox back onto the engine. And I had issues on the Celica a few years ago where the rear seal for the gearbox gave way. So I decided, for the sake of a $14 new seal, let's replace the old one. So I've popped that out of there, put the new one in, just so that I can do it on the bench easily without having to crawl underneath the car. So I'll quickly put this on, and then hopefully we'll be able to get this gearbox onto the engine. Try your best not to push it in too far. This only has to be just flush with the edge, because if you go too far, getting it back out is pretty much, you're going to pretty much damage it to bring that back out again. Alright, she's in. Nice and flush. That's all we got to do. Well, let's try get that on there. I'm really hoping that I've centered the clutch good enough, because right now that's clamped shut and it's not going to move. Fingers crossed it's centered enough. I basically just used my fingers on the 3 open sides to make sure that that clutch pad is dead center, and little even spaces between the clutch here, the clutch plate, and the clutch itself. So fingers crossed I got it centered. Let's give this a go. I don't have confidence I'm going to get this on the first tip, but we'll see. Lucky enough, it's kind of a light gearbox. We're on. Well, I must have centered it correctly, because that's that's in place, so that's awesome. Let's quickly put a bolt in the top here. So it's gone in, but I've missed a dowel, so I've got to pull it back off again. Damn. There we go. That's it. Now we're on the dowels. Now my bolt will go in. Awesome. Let's get some bolts in here and then start moving it around. That was very minimal effort, which is really good. I'll say it a million times. Simple and easy, and they're very light, which makes life oh so easy for me, putting it all back together. So now it's time to think about getting this back into the car. I want to have a quick look at it first though. I think it's important that things like the engine mounts I need to have a quick look at and make sure they're okay before they go back in, because I don't want to have to pull it back out when I don't need to. As far as cleaning the engine up a little bit's concerned, I can do that while it's in the car. I'm going to be taking the intake manifold off. It's already been unbolted, and I will have to get some new gaskets for it. I'm sure I'll be able to buy a gasket kit somewhere for this. I have to fix some guy's dodgy work on the carby here. This is just the pulley that holds the accelerator cable or whatever it is in place. I don't want to pull too much apart, but I do want to be able to get at just what I need to make sure everything's half alright. So I might just kind of jack it up in the air a little bit and try and get it to stay in place and just go over a few things. On camera it does look pretty bad. These engine mounts, they look pretty good. I can't see any cracks in them, but we'll have a closer look in a minute. Let's get this jacked up just a little bit and hanging in place, and we'll go over this engine. First things first, I'm going to take the intake manifold off and take this kind of wiring off here. I don't know what they've done, but I think it's just to hold this bracket just so that maybe the cable's spaced out. That'll have to get sorted. Some earth wires kicking around. I don't know if I want to take the distributor off. Again, I'll have to have a look at it. If I buy a gasket kit and it comes with a rocker cover kit, I might change that and get all these little valves changed as well. We'll see how we go. The alternator, again, does it work? I don't know. Engine mounts. Got this kind of plate over the top, which is pretty cool, but I'll unbolt those and I'll have a look at them just by taking those off there, have a closer look and see if this actually needs to be replaced or not. Now somebody has got the heater hose, whether this is an outlet or not, I'm not 100% sure, but the hose goes from here to here, and they've bypassed the actual heater core. One of those pipes should go into one of these and vice versa, and that's sending hot water in through the heater system. I don't know why they've disconnected it. I'm hoping that the heater core inside the car is actually good. I'm gonna have to pull it out and have a look at it at some point. That looks like a temperature sensor because that's on the coupling. This must have been replaced recently because that's in very good condition, where this one here is a tad corroded. The fan on the front seems to be in good nick. The pulleys are so-so. The belt, well, I'm going to get a new belt regardless because they're cheap. Again, some big fat earthing cables need to go somewhere. That, I think, is a mechanical fuel pump. That is exactly what that is. That's not needed because it's actually got an electronic fuel pump in it, which has been changed. So I could actually take that off the engine itself and maybe put a block plate on that. This is an oil filter. Looks very old school, obviously. And we've got the distributor cap. Oh, a dipstick. It'd be interesting to see what the oil's like in here. While it's up here, I may as well drop the oil out of it anyway. I think I already did that before I took it out. No idea what the condition is like. Hopefully the gasket is good as well and I don't have to change it, but I don't want to pull stuff apart if I don't need to, because that's just more work and I don't want to do work. Rubber gasket for the rocker cover feels a tad hard. That might have to be a cheap replacement. Well, not much to say about that. So oil cap. Well, let's start pulling a few things apart and just having a closer look before we get this engine and gearbox back in. One intake manifold with a pretty nice looking carby, actually. That is definitely not standard. At some point, someone's replaced the carburetor on this. which is good because it did run when I started it. So let's put that up. RIP gasket. One alternator. Now there is the old fuel pump. Something on the inside of the engine, probably on this shaft here. As that turns and rotates, it pushes this little guy in, and that moves a little diaphragm up and down, which pulls and pushes fuel in through the old fuel pump. Pretty cool, but not needed. I'll keep it though because, I don't know, it's cool. I'm not going to throw it out, but I should be able to find a blanking plate for that. If not, I'll have to make one out of some steel, but this can just sit here and do nothing for a while. Before I take the distributor off, I can't really tell on here what markings are, you know, 1, 2, 3, and 4 for each cylinder. So I'm just going to mark them with a white pen, just so that I know where these cables go, because, you know, it's easy for me to tell 1, 2, 3, 4 cylinders, or 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever. It doesn't matter. As long as I get the orientation correct when it goes back on, we'll be good. So I got to take this bolt here off, which has this little tiny fork that holds this down into place. So with this fork gone, this should actually pop straight out, and I should be able to take that dizzy straight off there and unplug these cables. Labeled. Now I won't muff it up. Well, less chance to muff it up. So I'm guessing, I'm not sure on this, obviously correct me if I'm wrong and let me know if I'm wrong, because I'd like to know, but I'd imagine that that fork that's bolted on there puts pressure down on this plate so you can adjust the actual distributor itself. To get it off there though, I wonder if you just pop it straight up. I'm not sure. So the answer is yes, you pop it straight up. Now, I don't want any junk getting down those holes, so I'm going to tape them up good and proper. Now it looks like it hasn't seen fluid for quite a while. We've got a little bit of dry corrosion in here. I'm going to jump on the interwebs and see how much a little water pump like this. I think, is this a water pump? Possibly. I think it is, because it's at the bottom. Anyway, I'm going to see how much this part is to replace, because in here, if this is all corroded like that, it could be a little bit worse on the inside. And also, if I get a gasket kit, it's probably worth me taking this off and just having a close look at it. Pretty much the way it is now is how I want to put it in the car. I'll tape up some of these open parts here just so I don't spill any junk in there, and we'll give it a little bit of a scrub down before it goes in, and I've got to find this bracket that goes on. And then we can actually put it into the vehicle so it has somewhere to live. Being such a small engine and a relatively big engine bay, having this in the car is not going to be a problem. It'll give me plenty of room to work on anything that I may need to work on. So let's get this done now. Well, with a few things cleaned up, which are you know, things like this over here and the alternator and all those little fun pieces all sorted out, all this kind of stuff. I've put the engine mounts back on, so they're now back in place. I'm going to put this in the car, and then from there, anything that goes back onto it is going to get cleaned up really well before it goes on. Also, while it's in the car, I'll be able to actually take this valve cover off and give that a bit of a clean up. I can clean up the exhaust inlet, outlet and intake areas. There's so much room in this little engine bay with this tiny engine that I can do a lot of the engine work while it's in the car and no longer taking up all this space in the middle of my garage. So let's put it in. Excellent. So after having more issues with the handle being on the wrong side of this leveler, which we sorted out, that engine's in. Look how small that thing is. It's the tiniest little motor. I got plenty of room to work on it though, which is really good. Very, very easy to put in. These engine mounts, they just slide into a slot with the bolt as you lower the engine down on top, so that made life really easy. Starter motor's back on. Oh, this is going to be a breeze. So excited. Nice. Well, I think that's going to do it for today. Cleaned the gearbox up, gave the engine a little bit of a scrub, nothing over the top. Pulled a few parts off it. We'll put it back together bit by bit and try and get it running. Hopefully in the next few weeks would be wonderful. Then sort out my wiring and a bunch of other things. So that gives me room now. I can put this engine hoist away, pack it up so it's not taking up all my space, and start cleaning that one up and hopefully get it running really soon. Fingers crossed, it won't be long. Adios.